counties you mentioned are very heavy in the mineral values. And so they've been able to really reduce their tax rates. They can raise a lot of money at a very low tax rate because their property values are so high. We are on the edge of that. Stockdale's on the edge of that. And so we don't really get to participate in that. Atascosa, Carnes, Gonzales, they're all in that oil patch down there, and good for them. They've been able to raise a lot of funds with a little bit of tax rate. Unfortunately, our penny doesn't generate quite as much as theirs does.
One benefit is we aren't Chapter 41. You mentioned the Robin Hood Act. A lot of those districts that are down in that oil field patch, which I was a business manager for one of them, it makes you sick to see that you are collecting those tax dollars and then you are sending them straight to the state. So here, at least the state is contributing. If we move those pennies over to the M&O side, they're giving us more money for that. So
there's no risk that they're going to be able to come back around, because I know that if you collect more than a certain amount on the M&O side, then they will harvest in tax recovery that overage. It seems to me that's the legislature's playing rope-a-dope.
Yeah,
they're luring us in with this whole TRE and the magic pennies game, and then once they get a certain critical mass of school districts that have gotten on board and they've got them locked in, then they're suddenly going to change up the law and back out even further. That I just don't trust the legislature, not from what I've seen in their past conduct.
We would have to generate, you remember the graphic where it showed that if we move it to the M&O side, we would generate about $207,000 on one penny. We would have to generate about $55,100 and something
You're at
dollars.
$1.2 billion in
Yes.
yeah,
I mean,
probably about 600,000.
Our property values would probably have to.
What we're saying is Floresville and Stockdale and Poth and Lavergne are in no danger of slipping into the recapture area, because our property values per student are way below the threshold that the state has set. But I share your distrust of the legislature, because they are financing schools around the state on the backs of the taxpayer. Now, you know, you put the slide up there that showed that next year in 18-19, about 62% of the money to operate the schools statewide is going to come from the local taxpayers and only 38% from the state. Yet the state law says that the schools are supposed to be substantially funded by state contributions. We're way below that now. So I share your distrust of what's going on in Austin. What your district is, and I'm an outsider looking in. I live down the road here, but I'm an outsider looking in because I don't have kids in Floresville and I don't pay taxes in Floresville. But what your district is trying to do is squeeze every legal dollar out of the state funding formulas. And you're right that they've been kind of forced into that. You know, I'm with you on that. And that's why so many districts around the state, the 425 and so many in this area, have not only done the swap, they've actually approved adding 13 cents to the tax rate. There's a lot of districts right down the road here that are at $1.17, and they didn't do it through any kind of swap. They added the 13 cents to the.
But they're 36 million in the hole, and they're looking at laying off 60 teachers. It didn't save them.
Yeah.
It just, you know, what rabbit are they going to kill next?
Well,
they don't have anything else to do.
They don't, and they're going to have to lay off teachers, and if their enrollment keeps dropping, they're going to be laying off teachers the next year or two. So yeah. So, but again, what your district's trying to do is they're trying to squeeze every legal penny out of those funding formulas, which badly need to be changed. They're crazy complicated for one. They're unfair for another. I could show you some statistics from the 16-17 school year. Your school district here generated about $5,770 for what we call weighted ADA in the 16-17 school year. Bernie down the road at $1.04 generated $6,235. Okay, how is that fair? Why should Bernie get an additional $500 per student to educate their kids over what Floresville gets?
How do they? I thought that I guess, on what basis do they get the extra $500?
It's just the way the funding formulas are operating, and they're one of the districts that's heavy into recapture. You know, I was in Bernie 2 weeks ago, and their complaint was, we're having to give a bunch of money to the state, you know? But when you look at the revenue that they're generating per student, it's much higher than the Floresvilles and the Lavernias and the Pleasantons and the Posts and the Stockdales of the world. That's why I'm saying the system's unfair. We ought to have the same dollars for the same kids for the same tax effort. You know, the kids in Poth and Floresville are just as important as the kids in Bernie, you know, or Port Aransas, or some of the other richer school districts that are generating more money. You know, what you hear from the recapture districts is, for us, we're having to send a bunch of money to the state. What they're not telling you is that most of them, and Bernie is a good example of it, are still generating more money than most of the school districts around the state. So it's crazy complicated, it's unfair, and they need to change it. But the legislature's happy with what's been going on the last few years, because statewide property values have been doing this. And the state share of what they've had to put into the system has been doing this. So I share your disdain with what's going on in Austin, and I wish our state representative and state senator was more concerned about what we're talking about here tonight.
Are there any other questions?
I'm sorry I got wound up there, but
No,
I've worked with this for many years, and I'm kind of.
You know, it's like, I plotted our land that we have, that it pretty much stayed around the same until 2006. And then the appraisal district over here started hitting it, and now it's almost 200% just since '06. And I mean, if it wasn't under wildlife, it'd be a huge tax bill. And the thing is, the businesses don't pay these taxes. And everybody thinks that, oh, we'll hit the business with this fee or that fee. If Joe's Taco Stand over here gets hit with a 50% tax, valuation increase by the appraisal district over here, that they just jack up the price of the tacos, and every person that buys a taco there is paying the increase in the property tax. So the only people who can't kick the can down the road is the homeowner. The individual homeowner. All the businesses get to offload that onto the community around them.
And you are correct that every year the comptroller's office does that property value study, and if their study differs from what the CAD has, then the CAD is under enormous pressure to get those values up to where the state says that they ought to be. A good example of what happens if that's not the case, Poteet down the road here is going to lose about $800,000 in funding next year, because the state came in and said, well, we think your property values are about $70 million higher, or $700 million higher than you've got them on the roll here. And so they're going to lose a lot of state funding if that CAD doesn't get those values up to where the state says they ought
That's
to
what I'm
be.
talking about, that circular process.
There is that
they've
pressure.
sworn up and down does not exist. That the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, when the left hand and the right hand are like this. Because, the ISD gets to score the CAD's performance. The CAD, if they don't produce enough income for the ISD, then the ISD gets punished. You know what I'm saying? Is that if the rolls aren't high enough, they took, an example is they took, I bought an old repo mobile home, and if you ever get familiar with mobile homes at all, when that truck drives away, it's worse than a car. It's worse than a Hyundai. The value of that trailer, the moment that truck leaves, goes down by 50%. And unless it's attached, deeded to a piece of land, and it's sold as a unit, the land gives it value. Without the land, it retains none of its value. So even though I paid $30,000 for it, 2 years later, the NADA for that trailer was 9. And now it's 6. And, But in the delusional brain, and these are supposed to be professionals. That's what gets me, is these guys are supposed to be the professional, trust us, we're the experts. Anybody who owns a mobile home out here can tell them that mobile homes don't go up in value. But they look at it and they go, well, you paid $30,000, so it must be worth $50 today, and then they send that down. It's insane. from the tail end of at the end of the wagging dog here, I think most of us are just fed up. And when we see where we are, I mean, I went and wrote found that there was people looking to invest in the community and build businesses, they go to these sites. And this site had all of the tax information for, like the averages of median tax and percentage of tax, of the tax collected as a ratio to the average income of the people in that area, as an average of how much percentage of the appraised value. So, like how much are they collecting? They have it all in there, but it all looks national. So I wrote a tool, and I went and data mined their website and pulled all the rest of the data for Texas. And when you look at it, it's really an eye-opener, the disparity between one end of that spectrum and the other. Well, it didn't surprise me that Harris County would rank number 3 in the state of Texas for percent of value, because I lived there for a long time, and it was a constant, ongoing battle with their appraisal district. But it is an eye-opener where we land on that curve. I don't know what's going on in King County. They're insane. Something weird going on down there, because you got your mean tax in King County is almost $8,000. They're so far as an outlier from the rest of the state. I don't know what they're taxing to get that. Is there somebody with a gold mine? I don't know.
Well, again, I know that there are some districts, like Mr. Stavino said, that as they're going out for TRE, they're not even doing a swap. They're just asking their taxpayers to go to be willing to pay 13 more cents to increase their tax rate. But what we're doing is we're asking to pass the tax ratification election, knowing that our board will have already on June 18th passed a resolution, an ordinance, and an order. All three are saying the same thing, that they are going to reduce the INS by 13 cents. And so, while I know no one likes for their taxes to go up, what we're saying is the tax rate will not be affected by the TRE.
So now, is this the only way the teachers are going to receive raises with this tax ratification?
Right now, with the budget that we currently have, there would be no way to give a raise. Our teachers have received raises 4 out of the last 8 years. So, yeah, and this year we were only able to give a 1% raise to our staff. So, yes, it will hinge on whether or not we can pass the tax ratification election, which is, why one of the bullet points up there was to recruit and retain high-quality staff. I mean, if we want the best teachers to stay in our district, we have to be competitive with our salaries.
How many teachers are leaving as of right now? I mean, because I know a lot of teachers are leaving.
Actually, I just sent the board some information. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see it, but we don't have any higher, we don't have, our teacher turnover rate in the last 12 years, 6 times in the last 12 years, our teacher turnover rate has been above the state average. And 4 of those times was when Dr. Benson was superintendent, once was when Dr. Hunter was superintendent, and once was under my leadership 3 years ago. So, yeah, so we're fortunate. I mean, we're always going to have, we're close enough to San Antonio that teachers can, all staff members can get to San Antonio if they need to. And for some of the bigger districts, it will always be hard to compete with them. But we want to definitely be competitive with schools our size and schools in our immediate area. But we don't have any more teachers that have left the district right now than we had last year. So, I mean, we're not overly concerned about that right now in the immediacy, but just long term, we know it's important to be competitive, or that will happen more often.
Charter schools aren't looking at coming in over here as of right, because that's what's hurting San Antonio right now.
And Northeast is getting pummeled by the charters, you're right.
Well,
I have not been
South side
notified.
too, or as far as South San Antonio, you got a lot of charter schools starting now.
Yeah.
That's where the shifts are
No,
happening.
one at Brooks.
Yes,
Yeah,
there's a Brooks Academy. I think that's probably the nearest. East Central's got one somewhere,
Oh, you said from those?
they have an IDEA somewhere, but I think it's over,
It's not in the
Inside
central
Fort
district,
Kent.
Oh, okay.
it's in their district.
it's in their district.
Okay.
It's in their
Central
district.
ISD, though.
I think it's over by Holt Cat. And I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. There's a charter school right across the road on,
Okay.
what's that? That's not military.
W.
WWY.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a charter school then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I heard that they redid the football field. How much was that? I mean, I didn't know it needed replacement.
Yeah, the football field, it's warranted for, I think, 8 years. The lifespan is usually about 10. We got ours to 11. And then there are tests that they do for safety purposes where different spots can become dense and it's more likely to increase the
Did they budget that?
injuries and those kinds of
Anticipating it
things.
over the 10 years that they would have to replace it?
I'm sorry, say that
In
again?
other words, did they budget and put money aside, or did it become a hard hit item? Well, I mean, knowing that in 10 years you'd have to replace it, was money already allocated in each year towards that replacement? So it came right out of the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your interest. If you do have any other questions, please let us know. We continue to add answers and questions and answers to the FAQ as we hear about them or see them. So we'll be glad to